Hello and welcome to another edition of Pop and Scott Talk Baseball. How you doing, Dad, on this Mother's Day weekend?
Oh, we're doing good. Yeah, I
Great.
grilled a steak and we had sweet potato and fried onions. And,
Sweet potato. Nanny loves some sweet potato. That's good. Uh, did you catch any baseball this week?
yes, I've watched a lot of baseball and I caught in Friday night and yesterday afternoon I watched. I'm sorry, Friday night and last night I watched the ACC women's softball.
I've been watching some of that too.
That was Duke beat Florida State in extra innings, and then yesterday number one and number two Texas and Oklahoma played for the Big 12, the last Big 12 championship that those two will be involved in because they go to the SEC next year. And Oklahoma, it's not exactly an upset. They're about even. They beat them 5-1. I watched that last night, and I watched at 4 o'clock. I made sure I turned on MLB because they showed the debut of Skeens for Pittsburgh. One of the craziest games. He started off the first inning. He struck out the first two guys, walked Bellinger, and the next guy hit the ball 385 feet, and they caught it right in front of the wall in center field. He found out that these guys in the major leagues see 100 mile an hour, 98 to 100 mile an hour pitches all the time. So he couldn't throw. He could throw it by a few of them, but he couldn't throw it by all of them. That's for sure. But he has a wicked slider.
Yeah.
And then when he got to the fourth inning, it might have been the adrenaline rush kind of calmed down, and he walked a couple of people. Then they had a rain delay. Then they got the Cubs got the bases loaded. And the next four Pittsburgh pitchers in that inning walked six batters. 6 bases loaded walks. The first time that had happened for about 65 years, and the last team to do it, I think, was the White Sox.
Yeah.
6 bases loaded walks in a row.
It's funny you said the fourth inning because, he didn't pitch past 3 innings in any minor league appearance this year. So that's I question that. I don't mind that early, but if you're going to bring him up, you got to let him build up that pitch count because he only uses about 15 pitches an inning down there. But getting back to the ACC tournament, something I wanted to touch on with girls. So I was watching UVA Clemson game, and Clemson's only had a team since 2020.
Right. Yeah, same as Duke. Duke and Clemson started their teams at the same.
I didn't know that. I thought for sure when, years ago when that prop came out where they had to have the same amount of female
proposition
scholarships, for as men, I thought then that just exploded with all that, but I'm very, very wrong. So that was neat to hear. And Clemson had some good players on their team.
Well, that gentleman has been coaching for several years, and
he from Stanford.
Yeah, he came from Stanford, and he had some powerhouses out there. He came from Stanford, and the young lady that's coaching Duke, she came from, I believe, North Carolina. She was an assistant at North Carolina and came over.
Right.
And they started those two teams up, and then they played in the semifinals against each other the other night, and the coach from Duke, she won the Coach of the Year award in the ACC, and they won the regular season championship.
Right.
And they came back and tied the game up in the last inning against Florida State, and then in extra innings, won the tournament championship also.
Yeah, it's fun to watch the women because, again, it's back to fundamentals ball. I don't care if it's softball, it's the same thing.
Well, Texas made 2 errors last night, and out of the 5 runs that Oklahoma got, 3 of them were unearned.
Well, the UVA game, the girl at first for UVA just isn't a top-notch athlete. She had a ball bounce off her glove that should have probably been caught. Then after that, in the first inning, then it, Virginia can't score a lot of runs. They were talking about that. But anyway, let's get to the baseball this week. Do you have an injury list for us?
Well, yeah. I mean, there weren't quite as many. It wasn't as pronounced, but the Dodgers closer, Evan Phillips, he's on the 15-day IL with a hamstring. He went out last Sunday. Right. Last night, Ohtani left the game with a stiff back. So both of those guys are out. Let's see, Cleveland, Stephen Kwan is on a 10-day list, and this joker was hitting 350.
And they don't know. He's got a thumb issue, and they don't know exactly what's wrong with it. Yeah, they're good. Right. He's going to have MRIs and all that stuff. Right.
And then, it was horrible. Wilson Contreras of St. Louis got his arm broken.
I was watching it. That was against the Mets.
Yeah.
So if you watch the replay of it, it's his fault. Because instead of receiving the ball, he reached out for some reason to catch the ball. And then he got hit on a full swing. And, I mean, you knew it. At first, I thought maybe it dislocated his shoulder, but, man, he was in pain. And he's a really good catcher, like defensive catcher. He throws BBs to second. Him and his brother, William. And he's not a bad hitting catcher. Your catcher is there for defensive purposes. If you lucky
throwing and handling the pitching staff.
Right. If you get a real Muto, you're lucky. Some of those other guys that hit very well, if you get a 250 hitting catcher, you're doing something. So, but man, that it hurt me. I've been hit with bats, but not like that.
The thing is, son, the thing is, this is one of the things I was going to talk about today.
And it was J.D. Martinez that hit him. It wasn't some little dude.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it wasn't some 18-pound shortstop.
Right.
They're doing Major League Baseball might do a study on this because they've had in the first month and a half of the season, they've had more catcher's interference for this time period than ever.
Well, they are closer to the plate.
Well, they showed some of the catchers on MLB this morning when they were talking about this.
Uh-huh.
And what they're doing is instead of receiving the ball, they're snatching at it so they can bring it into the zone. So they're reaching for it to snatch it and bring it into the zone. And when they're doing that, they're reaching out another 4 to 5 inches and putting their glove right in the swing plane. Yeah. So they're going to have to work on that because you can't tell the batter to move.
Right.
He's in the batter's box.
Because J.D. Martinez got first base for catcher's interference. Right. And I mean, but it was not. I hope he's a great player. It is his catching arm. If that's a blessing, I don't know. But man, he was in pain.
Well, they said he'll probably be out at least 6 to 8 weeks and maybe for the year.
Right. I know that one of their better pitchers for the Astros came back Saturday. The name is escaping me. I have him on my fantasy baseball, but he was supposed to start Saturday. I don't know how well he did. I didn't look at his stats.
They lost.
I didn't. Well, that's the Astros, but that doesn't mean.
What did I say a few weeks ago? I said they're not going to make the playoffs. They're done.
Even like Houston fans have kind of given up on them. I don't know what's going on there. I mean, was Dusty Baker that much of a difference maker there?
Well, I mean, they don't have. First of all, they had a lot of their pitchers were hurt. Yeah. Secondly,
but they're not scoring runs.
Their third baseman can't hit a lick this year. Bregman's not hitting. Bregman's one of the big disappointments in baseball with his hitting is horrible.
Right.
He's in a horrible slump.
Right.
And Judge is coming out of his. He hit a ball 476 feet the other night. But back to the Skeens.
Umpire pissed him off.
Yeah. Well, back to Skeens just for a minute. He He pitched 4 innings. He gave up 6 hits. 3 runs were charged to him, 2 of them on the walks, because he was out of the game and they were still walking people. He gave up 2 bases on balls, struck out 7. And he gave up 1 home run.
Right.
So, I mean, but this thing about the catchers, they said the catchers, they've got, something's got to change because they're hurting their teams by letting these guys get, they're getting first base. They're putting runners on the base because they're reaching up with their mitt and they're getting in the swing plane.
Everybody is stealing. Everybody is stealing this year. I've seen all types of plays.
The Nationals stole 5 bases Friday night in Boston.
Right. And I think the numbers people, the nerds of baseball, have figured out if you get thrown out at second as a lesser, at 20%, that means 80% you're putting a guy on second scoring position without having a hit.
Without having to bunt or try to hit the ball with the right.
So I think they figured something out with the rules. I mean, I even saw, I don't know if you saw where what's his face that pitched for the Phillies is now with Detroit, that threw the no-hitter for the Phillies. He got deked into a balk because he already threw over the first, and then he stepped off the back because he didn't like the pitch and wanted them to pick another pitch. So that was his 2
step-offs.
So the guy at first acted like he was stealing second while he was in his windup, and he stepped off the back and threw it to first when he went back to first. So the guy, it was a balk. So he had to go to third. He got second base because he already had his 2 step-offs. I think if he would have thrown it to second, it would have been okay, but he threw it back to first. And so he got deked into a balk. And, I was like, man, if that's going to be an occurrence, it's made the game exciting with the steals. I have to admit that. They want a little bit more scoring. I don't know if it's really doing that because people are still swinging from their heels so much. But I've seen some of that. Also, I want to put out there, Raz got at his first game, got a walk-off for the Padres after the trade. And I don't know if
4 hits.
I don't know if you want to, if you heard what he said after the trade was he was thankful he was out of Miami, and never will he forgive Minnesota. Finally a player is honest about a trade. So that was refreshing to hear, and also I'm glad if he was that miserable in Miami, I'm glad he's out.
Well, he's going to one of the best cities in the United States to be in, San Diego.
Yeah, and I mean Miami's all, you hear about just living in Miami's nice, but if you're a baseball player, I'm sure you go to a field that's 20 people and you can hear every conversation. You can actually be in the playoffs and not sell out your stadium like they did last year. They're bad this year, so that means even less people care. The team does nothing to really be a challenge anymore. They had a decent team last year, and they traded off some parts, and other pitchers got hurt. So, hey, I don't blame you for saying that. Maybe Miami will do something. I don't understand Miami's new front office at all. I don't know what they confuse me as much as Colorado. Those 2 front offices, I don't know if they know what direction they're going into. I know what Oakland's doing. Oakland just wants to get to their new stadium, and then I think they'll put money into the team. And they got young players. That at least Oakland, you can see some talent in their youngsters. You talk about the relief pitcher. I think they got a couple of good players, but man, are they bad where they're bad? I mean, they're just bad. So, I haven't looked at any of the standings again. Did you? Have you?
Yeah, sure I have. I want to say something about the Orioles, though.
Oh, go ahead.
They got just this point, but they have 6 players with an OPS of 130 or higher. 6. There's a team with 7, and that's the Dodgers. But the 6 players are O'Hearn, Cowser, Gunnar, Westberg, Rushman, Mountcastle. So, yeah, I mean, they got some guys that are stroking. And Westberg he went 3 for 4 last night and got the walk-off.
And he's up. He's a rookie this year, right? Westberg?
He played last year. I don't know if he played enough games. So
I don't know if he had enough at bats.
That's what I'm saying. He might not have had enough bats. He might be eligible for a rookie of the year, but he is.
They got like 4 people that are playing in Norfolk that could probably play on a big league team right now too. So, I mean, I haven't seen how Holiday is handling it back down here, but
he hit his first home run Friday night since he's been going back down, and he's hitting about 240. I got a little something on that too.
Okay.
We talk about the standings in the National League. Well, the American League, the O's and the Yanks. The Yankees are behind by a game and a half. Cleveland is leading the.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Huh?
The Yankees and Orioles. Do you think the Yankees, since they haven't gone out to this big league, I thought maybe they could win the division if they went out to a big league. And I'll tell you why I feel that way. Because they still are a team that has age on it, right?
That's
where
what
the Orioles.
Yeah,
the Orioles are not. This it's a long season, and it seems in the last few years, the Yankees run out of gas. And Judge carried them 1 year into the playoffs. You know, somewhere Stanton is going to miss a substantial amount of time. I don't care how much weight and how he's just a guy that gets hurt. You got Rizzo at first. You just have, I know they're waiting for Jason Dominguez to come back, and and I don't know if they probably have the best bullpen in baseball, but I still don't know if their starters are where they want them to be yet. So how do you feel? I know you just said.
Well, I was feeling the same way, son, that their age might catch up with them 40 years out. Might not.
Right.
But it might. But the other thing is they got Cole in their back pocket.
Yes.
So
that's very true.
That's going to help them a lot.
That'd be like a mid-season trade without
and Baltimore. Baltimore's bullpen yesterday and the day before did very well, including Kimbrel. But that's shaky ground.
They need to find a closer. If Kimbrel's your closer, you need to find a closer.
And the manager is saying they're going to give him every chance because he's earned that right. I mean, the manager is a nice guy, but winning's more important than being a nice guy. Yeah,
and I mean, he's a player's coach. So, I mean, that team is so loosey-goosey. They need somebody, though. Losing that Batista last year, I knew that was going to be the point. That was hurting them. Man, that was a huge loss.
Well, the Yankees are behind by a game and a half. And that's
right.
Cleveland's leading the Central, and Minnesota and Kansas City are half game back.
Kansas City is one of my teams. I said that before the season to watch them because they're built much like the Astros were before they went to a couple of years before the World Series.
Right,
young, scrappy,
and the old man catcher is still stroking that ball.
He is the guy he is the stir.
Oh, the stirs the drink.
Yeah, that's right. He is the guy.
In the West, Texas is leading Seattle by a half a game because Seattle lost a few in a row there. And now here's the thing. Oakland is in third place, 3 games back. Oakland's playing good ball.
I'm telling you.
Talk about a bullpen. Now, talk about a bullpen. They might have the best closer in the game. There's 2 teams that aren't very good that have closers that nobody knows about. this kid in Oakland and the other one and the one in St. Louis. They're young kids and they're both pitching their butt off. And going back to the AL East, Boston is in third place. Toronto is in last place, and they're the only team in that division with a losing record.
Right. Well, you know that'll change. Toronto have a winning.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'll change to a certain extent, but I mean, they just don't.
This was supposed to be their year.
Well, every year is supposed to be their year.
I guess so.
You got the whole, and finally, Vlad Jr. had 4 hits yesterday, so finally he got some hits. I mean, he's usually up there. It looks like he's beating a rug. I mean, that's just. But anyway,
you haven't used that terminology in a long time. I've missed that.
Yeah, well, see.
I used to say that a lot when I was a kid.
Because people my age my generation was the last ones that used to beat rugs.
Yeah.
Folks, a lot of people when I was a kid in the 1950s didn't have vacuum cleaners. You swept the floor. You had dust mops and brooms. You swept the floor and dusted. You took the rugs up off the floor, carried them outside, threw them over the clothesline, and you either took a broom or you took something that looked like a antiquated tennis racket and you beat the rug. And you knocked all the dust and the dirt out of it, let it hang out there and air out, and then you took it off the line, brought it back in the house, and put it on the floor. So when you said somebody is swinging like they're beating a rug, you're just flailing away at the rug trying to knock the dust out of it. So, I mean, that's where that comes from for all you.
I know, but I haven't heard you say it in a long time.
There's probably some young people watching this and say, what's a rug? But anyway, the Phillies are leading Atlanta by 2 games. Phillies have the best record in baseball. They're doing very well.
I know I got to hear it every day at work with a guy. I'm actually working with a Phillies fan right now, so at work. So I got to hear it every day. Also, just a side note, the Mets are playing the Braves this weekend, so I can't watch the games. It's awesome.
Well, it's on ESPN tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll watch that.
7:30 game. All right. Now, in the Central, Milwaukee is leading the Cubs by 1.5 games. And in the West.
Which that's interesting because the Brewers coach is now at the Cubs coaching.
Yeah, Counsell. Craig Counsell is now their manager.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
And the Dodgers are leading the Padres by 6.5 games. And the Padres are 21-21. Everybody else in that division has a losing record.
Yeah, that's I was thinking that the Diamondbacks would have a little bit of a fall back a little bit this year because they had
fallen back quite a bit.
Right. But when they picked up another pitcher and they did a lot of right things in the off season, but they're just not competing at the same levels.
The guys that were hitting the ball last year hitting 200.
Right. So you're hoping they'll get back on track.
Yeah, I mean it's still early, and
it was fun watching last year. They came out of nowhere, young team, just balling out and didn't know any better, and it was fun.
Well, last year in April, I fell in love with the Pirates. Oh, they were rolling. They were in first place in the Central, and they looked good.
Right.
Then May 1st came, and they turned into the Pirates. So then it was Cincinnati. Now, to be honest, Cincinnati stayed close right till the end of the year. They only lost out in the playoffs like about 2 games. Mm-hmm. But it was in Cincinnati. But the way the Yankees and the Orioles look, if the Orioles get some bullpen help, and the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Braves and the Phillies, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, but my fun part is going to be that back end of the playoffs because so many teams don't make the playoffs.
Right, yeah.
And we know if you get in, you don't have a chance. You don't have any chance if you don't make it.
Yeah.
So,
and
I agree with you. Though I said at the beginning of the year, there's some, but I think the rest of the league is so even. It's like I think we're going to see a lot of 500 baseball this year. And
I think we're going to see a lot of sub 500 baseball.
Personally, good.
The only thing is, you can only have so many losing teams.
I was getting ready to say, if you
got a pile. It's like, I hate to say it, but you got a lot of piles of garbage out there. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's some teams just not playing very well. Now this happened. Sean Burrows, 43 years old, had a heart attack and died.
Oh,
he had cardiac arrest.
He was a second generation baseball player.
Yes, and he was on the 2000 Olympic gold winning team. He played. For those of you who don't, I love the Little League World Series, the Little League stuff, because I used to coach it, and my grandson played it. Scott played it. But I love that thing. He was on the Long Beach, California Little League team that won back-to-back World Series in 92 and 93. Mm-hmm. He was one of the few in the Little League World Series that went on to be drafted into the majors. And he was drafted by the Padres in the first round. In 1998, he was the ninth pick. He came up a few years later, and he was the first batter. He played third base. He was the first batter to get a walk-off hit in the Padres Stadium, in the new Padres Stadium. So that's he.
I just know he didn't live up to his hype. He was second generation.
No,
his daddy was Sean Burrows too, right?
Yeah, but his dad, what he did was he played for about. He went up and down the minors, back to the majors and stuff like that for about 6 years, and then he got out of baseball for about 2 or 3 years, and then he came back and played a couple of years, and then he quit. Then he retired. Right.
Yeah, his dad was pretty good. His dad had a pretty good run.
Yeah, and the other thing. It was kind of cool. I was watching some of the highlights of the Yankees in Tampa. They were playing in Tampa, and Tampa won the game. And the Yankees are playing, so the place is almost sold out, which is rare in Tampa, but it was almost sold out. Now, 80% of people were wearing Yankee stuff. But I don't care who you can wear what you just buy my ticket.
Yeah, that's New York, Florida. That's all that is.
Yeah, and so, but anyway,
Tampa is pretty much New York City, yeah.
And Tampa won the game yesterday, but it was kind of cool. I'm seeing all those Yankee fans up there, and I was thinking to myself, it doesn't matter to Tampa; they're just counting the money.
Right. When the Mets were there, they swept them. They swept the Mets, and it was more Mets fans there.
This was the main thing I was going to bring up today, and some people are acting like this is a new thing, and it's not. Different general managers in the major leagues are having discussions on whether it's good to bring these kids up into the major leagues early or leave them down to get more seasons in AAA. Now, one theory is, and I'm going to use Jackson Holliday as an example. Jackson Holliday, they brought him up, and he had some trouble in spring training, striking out, especially against left-handers. So they brought him up. He was down on the farm. They brought him up, and he had a hard time at the plate. Had a hard time. So they sent him back down. Now, there's two schools of thought. One, you might as well leave him up here once you bring him up here and see if you can't get out of it. Figure it out and coach him and see if you can figure it out. Or send him back down to get more reps, get a few more hits, get his confidence back, and then bring him back up. Those are the two schools of thought. Personally, I think it depends on the player.
I agree too.
A school of thought means absolutely nothing because it probably doesn't apply to the same. The problem is, and this is what the general manager was saying, like it's something brand new. I heard this when I was a kid in the 1950s. There's a huge difference between AAA and the major leagues. Mm-hmm. So if a young man does well in the AAA, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do well in the major leagues.
There is a lot of 4A players.
That's what we saw. You and I have always said that. There's a lot of people they're halfway between AAA and Major League, and they're too good for AAA and they're not good enough for the Major Leagues. I'll give you a name. Tommy Tresh. Tommy Tresh was signed by the New York Yankees, shortstop. They didn't even put him in the A-League. They had a lot of little league, minor leagues back in the 50s. This was in the late 50s, like 58, 59. They put him up because he was going to take Kubek's place at shortstop. So they put him in Richmond. He got into Richmond on Saturday, son. My buddies and I went to the Richmond Virginian game and saw his first game. He was a left-handed batter. Played marvelous shortstop. They had a double-header. He came up 7 times in the doubleheader and got 5 hits. Every one of his hits was to left field. He hit line drives over the shortstop's head in the left field. So he stayed down in Richmond, I guess, until like September call-up. So they brought him up to New York. Now, you can go look him up. He had a good year. He had a good major league time in the major leagues. His career wasn't that bad. He was good shortstop, and he hit decent, but he wasn't. But what happened was this: when they brought him up, first time around the league, he was hitting like about 340. Over half of his hits, he would hit line drives to left field. Second time around the league, guess what? They played him like a right-handed pull hitter. And his batting average plummeted. Now, I'm just using him as an example because they figured him out. Now, he adjusted a little bit, but he's not a Hall of Famer. It wasn't. I'm just using that as an example. There are a lot of these kids that come up there and they're just not quite good enough. Not quite good enough.
Well, it's a makeup thing too. Like when Soto comes up at 19, nobody knew who he was. He came out of nowhere because the Nationals had so many injuries. Robles got hurt. He was supposed to be the next guy up. So Soto comes up, and he had nothing to lose. He comes up loosey-goosey, and now we know him as one of the greats now of the game, playing right now. So I think, when King Griffey comes up, his pedigree had him ready. I think Holiday is going to be okay because of his pedigree. His dad is there. His dad has been through this. He has somebody to talk to that's in his ear going, hey, man, don't sweat this. You're 20 years old. Go down, fix it, and you'll move on. You'll be fine. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Now, some other people go up and then they get sit down and probably destroy him. I can't remember his name. The Nationals had a third baseman a few years back that was supposed to be the next big player.
Yeah. Yep.
And he was a 4A player. He killed it. It was you see his numbers in AAA, and he's like 350 home runs, playing a hell of a, and he was a good third baseman. I could take that from him. But he comes up and he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat.
Yeah, so, he had a weird name. I can't remember.
Yeah, and I'm like, and then they send him down. He's killing it. They bring him back up. They start him in the regular first of the season. They're like, okay, we're gonna give you a chance. And I haven't heard anything about him. So that is a classic. They're too good to be, because minor league pitching, you go to a AAA game, it ain't too many schemes down there. If they are, they're in the major leagues. There ain't too many guys coming at you at 100 with a nasty slider.
That's what they were talking about. If
you're throwing 100, go ahead.
You can't duplicate the pitching. You can't. Right. So you can stand down there and hit off a guy throwing 95 all day long, all week long, and then they bring you up and the guy's throwing 99 with a nasty slider, and you're standing there looking like a dope. Because you've never seen that.
That AAA jump is so huge. People hit the ball hard, fielding and all that stuff. It might be a little different with some guys. They come up and somebody hits a rocket. We've seen not everybody hits like Stanton or some of those like Judge or hit rockets in the minors, but they are guys there. You're gonna see some of that. But pitching, that's a huge jump. I worked with a guy that played, me and you both. He was your one of your lead techs that played NFL football, and I was like, and he played a few years, but ended up going playing CFL, and I was like, what's the difference in making a team because you were all world college.
Yeah, he played at Dinwiddie High School, and
Yeah.
he went to Penn State.
And he basically won the national championship for Penn State with an interception on the last drive by Miami. It's on YouTube. We played it when he walked in the room. He gets mad. I'm not going to say any names, but I asked him, like, what was the difference? And he was like, this much in football. Between the guy starting and the guy that gets cut, it's just whatever that little bit is. And I think it's different in baseball. I think you eat that hitting, man. They've said that these guys have grown up, now with fast pitchers. It's that other pitch. I bet you there's plenty of guys throwing high 90s, close to 100 in the minors, but they don't have that secondary pitch, right? And that's the difference. That could throw for a strike. So he's probably sitting on fastballs. You could sit on a fastball in the minors. You can't really sit on pitches. You wait in fastball, adjust to the off speed. I've heard that all my whole life. Once I start seeing curveballs.
Well, you gotta sit on the fastball and adjust to the breaking pitch, because if you try to do it the other way around, the fastball will be in the catcher's mitt before you swing.
Right. And I mean, that's the huge difference to me is the pitching. We're seeing it with Skeens. He was just so, and I'm interested to see how he does because he was just so overpowerful in AAA. But there's a reason why they were only letting him go 3 innings. I'm wondering what.
Well, see, I think this just runs through my old brain. Watching him yesterday, I'm thinking, this guy, the way he dominated in that first inning, oh my goodness, would he make a closer or what?
Right.
Now, what Pittsburgh will do, and I'm sure, and I would advise them to do this, let him go this whole year as a starter and see what he does. But keep it in the back of your mind, with this kid's stuff, he could be a closer.
Right.
Now, some people say, well, wait, starting pitching is much more important than a closer. No. Look at it this way. The starting pitcher pitches every 5 days. The closer will pitch 3 times in those 5 days if you have the lead. They'll pitch one, take one off, pitch one, take one off, pitch one.
Sometimes they go back to back.
Sometimes they go back to back.
Then they're out that third day, yeah.
A lot of them aren't now because they throw so hard.
Right.
But I'm just saying that he's got, to me, that's a backup plan. If he has problems as a starter, and I don't think he will, I think he'll be fine once he settles in, because, son, if you saw his other pitches.
I think that's the point I was trying to make was,
wow.
I think they're really trying to either, and I'm thinking the way Pittsburgh thinks, they're auditioning for other teams. That's what I feel like they're doing. I know they waited to bring him up to have control, but they'll have 4 years with this guy. Let's be real. He's going to be a $100 million guy on his next contract, as long as everything holds up. And he's not going to be in Pittsburgh. 3 years, maybe. And I think it's an audition. I really do, because Pittsburgh's looking, okay, we got this mega guy. We can get probably 3 high prospects for. And that's how Pittsburgh thinks. And it's not bad thinking on their part because they can't afford him. So that's the problem with having the first pick for Pittsburgh.
Well, I mean, they'd get 4 good years out of them. That's 4.
Yeah, they already have 2 pretty good. They got 2 pretty big payrolls. They're paying the outfielder, and they got I think they're paying O'Neal Cruz pretty much, or is it Brian Hayes? I always get those guys confused. They might be paying all three of them. So I don't know if they can handle the Skeens contract. So,
well, the thing that you have to worry about damaging is the player's psyche.
yeah,
And that's the one thing you have to worry about. And it just seems like this day and age, people in general are just much more sensitive than they used to be.
well, it's
a sign of the times.
It's a society thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a societal thing, and people are just way more sensitive than they used to be. And so you just have to be so careful. I know I teach children at church, and you have to be very careful how you handle things. You know, I have a certain way of doing things, and some of the kids don't particularly care for it because I don't put up with any nonsense, and I run a strict shift, but I keep it tight. And most of the kids, they're used to me. It doesn't bother them. But I've had a couple parents come to me, and I said, look, children are going to behave. I'm not going to let one or two children disrupt it for everybody else. So when your child is talking and I give them 2 warnings, and then on the third one, I make them move to another seat so they're not talking to somebody, hey, they're going to stop talking. I won't do that. That's simple.
Right.
But it's just some of these. That's what these general managers are worried about, the psyche of some of these players. I don't think Jackson Holliday is going to have a problem because, first of all, he knows he's talented.
Right.
He's not a dope. He knows he's talented, and he'll be fine. I think if he goes down there and one of the things is, even in spring training, you could see him in the spring training games I watched from the Orioles. He pressed. You could tell by the look on his face he was pressing, trying to, because when he first started out, they said, oh, he'll never make the team. Not this year, because he was doing so bad. And then about halfway through spring training, he started ripping the ball.
I just wondering, he gets up there, you have such talent, young talent. They're all the same age. I mean, I don't know if that's overwhelming to him. Some people don't know how to handle that either if they're not the best player on the team. Right. He's been the best player.
There's a slight difference in the crowd reaction and everything between Camden Yards and the place in Norfolk. I mean,
right.
So you can't. That's the other thing. When you get to the major leagues,
the Norfolk's been my game that they show on here. They show Skeens every time. They were in Durham this week showing that game on my MLB network because the 7th ranked pitcher was in town pitching against Durham Bulls. I was like, darn, I wish I was healthy enough. I would have went to that. So I need to start looking at that prospects. I have a high A. Not too many prospects are in high A, but when you go, Durham Bulls are AAA, Charlotte Knights are AAA. There's a AA team. I can't remember it. I think in starts with a K. I can't think of it. Right. No, I can't think of the team or the name of the team. Right. I think that's the White Sox AA team. They're not too far outside of Charlotte. So I need to start looking. Last year I was looking. I could had a chance to see the Gonzalez kid from the Pirates organization. He played for the Grasshoppers. That's the Pirates high A team. So there is some guys, but I don't even think the Dash has a guy on a 40-man on their roster when I looked earlier this year. So, but we're gonna end it there. One
quick thing. I don't know if you got the email or not, but that first neon light, black light thing at the with the Chili Peppers is sold out. I got it. They said they sold it. They sold out the stadium in an hour and a half. So now they're scheduling more than one game. So,
jeez. And let's let everybody know it's only like a 400-seat stadium, but still, that's pretty nuts.
It's a wooden bat independent league,
right? It's it's a showcase league.
But I thought I'd let you know that.
Yeah. And I mean, they're like kind of like the banana. the bananas down there in
Yeah, the Banana
South
Rams in Savannah.
Yeah. So they're trying to do things to get people. I mean, they get people to their games anyway, but
One other thing about Skeens, his girlfriend,
yes,
the gymnast from LSU,
Olivia Dunn.
Olivia Dunn, who is on all over the YouTube and social media.
She had the highest NIL in NCAA last year.
Right, of anybody.
Yeah.
Including Caitlin Clark, Deion Sanders' son, Archie Manning's son. She had the highest one. So, and they said, they said Kelsey's got Taylor Swift and Skeens has got Olivia Dunn. So there you go. So anyway, it's that was another little side like this.
Yeah, I mean that's every time he pitched. She was at his last minor league game, so there was pictures of her up in their little box. So they were the power couple at LSU. So yeah. So we talked about that last week after we got off air. But I'm going to end it with that. This is recorded on Sunday. I always put it out on Monday. So today is Mother's Day. I want to wish everybody. I know I don't have a lot of mothers, but if I do watching, happy Mother's Day. Wore my pink today. My MLB Mother's Day hat that they're all wearing today. And don't forget the mothers that were like mothers to you growing up. I had a neighborhood full of moms, and I have a
your grandmother. Your grandmother.
Yeah. So, and they're not all with us, but they're still right here. Still right here. I remember them. They were all great moms and stuff. Gail's still here. Not all of them, and my mom. But out of the neighborhood, we missed some, and Josie Henderson. We got quite a few moms.
Yeah, Josie's still around. She's still working home.
Yeah. So, still have remembrance of them, and even, and I said it before, the ones that were like our moms, it takes a village, right? So remember them, all and reach out if you can or whatever. So until next time, like, share, tell a friend. Welcome to the new subscribers. Until next time, see ya.